So I asked this AI program, what is enlightenment? And as we know, AI is only as good as the data that it's given. So I figured the AI program would be a representation of what the wider collective belief about what enlightenment is. So here's what it told me. Enlightenment is a state of mind that is only achievable by a select few. Enlightenment is a myth that was created by people who want to feel superior to others. Enlightenment is a myth that was created by people who are too lazy to actually do anything. Enlightenment is just a fancy word for being really high. Enlightenment is a myth perpetuated by self-help gurus to sell books and courses. Clearly, we don't know what the fuck enlightenment is collectively. And spirituality and enlightenment, in the definition that I'm going to offer you, are essentially the same journey, basically. The analogy that comes to mind when I read that is sort of like those who don't believe China exists because they've never been there. And so because they've never been there, they say, oh, China's not a thing. It's like something that people talk about to sell Chinese food. Or China is something that, like, a myth that's perpetuated by people who want you to believe in China. So this is a long way of saying there are a large number of definitions, like a wide array of definitions of what spirituality, what enlightenment is. And it's come to mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And that's caused a ton of confusion. And it's caused people to chase things that aren't what they think they're chasing, to confuse, let's say, spirituality with religion, or spirituality with healing, or spirituality with getting a stronger mind, to confuse enlightenment with a state of just being really happy, things like this. And again, this work requires very clear definitions. And to want to develop spiritually means understanding what spirituality and the spiritual journey actually is. So my hope is that this clarifies a lot for all of us, even if it means spirituality is just not what you're looking for. But then at least we know. And then if spirituality is what you're looking for, my hope is that this session gives you a practical map for getting there and a deeper understanding of what it is the goal is, really, of this work. So what spirituality isn't, first of all, maybe an obvious statement to those in this group, spirituality is not religion. Religion can point towards spirituality and the goals of spirituality, but it, in and of itself, is not spirituality. Attending church, reading the Bible, is not inherently spiritual. Religion, at least its, original function, as I see it, is sort of like the finger that points at the moon. And a lot of people that, like, those who engage in religion typically are looking at the finger. They're not actually looking at where it's pointing and obsessing about the finger and making the finger the thing. The moral structures and the rules of religion, you must go to church every Sunday, all of this kind of stuff to please a sort of spiritual Santa Claus in the sky that's going to keep you happy if you keep him happy. And that's just, it doesn't take a lot of thought to realize that's not what it is. And one of my favorite sayings is from Will Johnson. He said, there's no such thing as believing in God. You either know God or you don't. And a belief implies that we don't know. We have to believe it because we don't know. And knowing implies we no longer need to believe it because we know. So simply believing in God, taking God as a belief, taking enlightenment as a belief, taking spirituality on belief, an idea in the head, directly blocks knowledge of it. The spiritual path is about knowing directly. Nothing short of that. And so again, what spirituality isn't is ideas and beliefs. It's not something you can read in a book and take on, again, faith that the book is correct. It's not a conceptual idea in the mind. School, religion, philosophy teaches us to just take things on belief. Here's some information. It's true. Genuine spirituality demands that you define and find out what's true directly through your own experience, and nothing less will do. It's also not mystical powers. That's a big misunderstanding. Spirituality, as I define it anyway, and more specifically awakening, enlightenment, is not about the development of power or skill. It's not about becoming a chi master, although that may assist your journey towards, awakening. It's not about developing control of your psychic body or karmic body. It's not about being able to manipulate reality. All of that stuff is it's true, it exists. There are higher potentials and abilities available to the human being, but that's not fundamentally what spirituality is about. And in most cases, it's actually a distraction from the real thing. So it has nothing to do with all this mystical bullshit, like magic-y stuff. That stuff does exist, and it's not the real thing. And finally, I'll say, this sounds a little funny saying this, but spirituality, I'll put it this way, is not spiritual. Spirituality is nothing more than what actually is. It's the simplest, most fundamental thing. It's not spiritual in the sense that you don't have to live in a cave, you don't have to wear white robes and preach about love and light and link arms and sing Kumbaya and hug everybody and be, this deity of compassion. And it's none of that. It's not something you wear as a style or cloak your ego in. It has nothing to do with that. You may prefer that sort of style, and that's totally fine, but it's not that stuff is wrong per se, it's just irrelevant. And so I'll give you a definition of spirituality. This is the clearest one that I've come across. This is the way that I define it, what I refined it down to for you guys. And the definition is, spirituality is the study of the nature of reality through your own direct experience. The study of the nature of reality through your own direct experience. What is this? What, in other words, the fuck is going on here? Who, what, why, and where am I? Actually. Not as a conceptual idea or a belief, but in the same way that you could spend your entire life, as I said earlier this week, describing color to a blind person and they would never understand it. You have to see color directly to get it. And so through your own direct experience is the part to double underline. It has to be direct. You can explain what an orgasm is to somebody when they're 8 years old and explain it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they'll never fucking understand. It's not possible to describe things like color, things like an orgasm in ideas and concepts. So direct, or it doesn't count. And one of my, the coolest ways I've heard of describing this comes from my teacher in the Amazon, who says, the shaman is the scientist of reality. The scientist. Which is interesting because spirituality and science are often conflated or in conflict, said to be in conflict. And religion and science are in conflict directly because religion is all about belief and science is about getting to the facts. But spirituality, when it's practiced in truth, is deeply scientific in the sense that it's all empirical. It's empirical. What is actually true through my own direct experience. The scientist running the experiment and seeing for himself what the result is. That's spiritual practice. There's a beautiful, it was like just a passage in a random letter between people that I came across describing the experience of seeing reality as it is. So I'll read it to you here. Everywhere is this perfection like a clear note sweetly sounded, and the only thing that can ruin it and make it sour is the attempt to improve it. And the only thing that does this is ego. The false self ever strikes the false note. So we see reality through the lens of our own survival and self-interest. We see it the way we want to see it. And in turn, we distort what it actually is. And we distort it by constantly trying to optimize it, to improve it, to see reality in a way that suits us. And we miss what she called the clear note sweetly sounded, the pure thing, what it really is when we cease all of that and just see it clearly for the first time. That seeing it clearly for the first time is what's referred to as an awakening. And enlightenment is someone who is enlightened is one that only sees what is and doesn't see what we could say what's not. I was once speaking around it, like pontificating, philosophizing with a girlfriend of mine. And she was like, dude, who cares? Like, who gives a fuck? Just like watch some shows, enjoy life. Like, who cares? Seeing reality as it is. What the fuck is that going to do for me? And good point. Good point. Totally valid, But consider that if we see reality through the lens of our own survival biases, self-interest, in terms of its function to us and in the way that we want to see it, if we're seeing it that way rather than in its pure form as it is, then we are placing conditions on reality. I want it to be this way, not this way. And the difference between conditional love and unconditional love is the absence of conditions. So what we're saying is, I love reality, I love myself, I love my life. I love it if it's this way, not if it's this way. And I'm continually routing my life force into making it the way I want it, or the way I think I want it, and not the way I don't want it. I'm putting all of my energy and effort into making it match my preferences. And that's how you block the flow of what we're calling love. Unconditional love is love without conditions. I love it exactly as it is. That's a profound experience. And so we could say spirituality, awakening, enlightenment is the journey of loving who and what and where and why you are unconditionally, falling in love with yourself and life itself in a literal sense, destroying the biases and conditions we place on our experience until it's all masterpiece, perfection. That's a radical idea when you think about it, because all we fucking do is optimize shit for ourselves. Get what we want, avoid what we don't want. The journey of spirituality is the journey beyond what do I want and not want to what is. What I'll suggest is that most or all of us have actually had a brief experience of a version of this sort of unconditional love or transcendent love, meaning transcending conditions. Most or all of us have had like a little glimpse of that sort of experience. Weston, the first year, do you remember after movement?
I just thought of that, yeah.
And you went to the fence and were looking out and you said, if I could only see reality this way all the time, I wouldn't need Instagram. I never forgot that, because it's a moment of this glimpse of oh, fuck, this is what it is? When the mind is quiet and not distorting things. And not that that's like an awakening or enlightenment, but it's something like it. It's a moment of transcendence, of wonder, of awe. And I still remember to this day 6th, 7th grade, something like that. I'm out of my driveway, as one is, shooting my 500 shots, and clouds roll in this massive thunderstorm, like all at once pours down so quickly I couldn't go inside. And it was so overwhelming and so powerful. Like the rain coming down that quickly kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I looked around and I'm drenched in water, little like, 7th grade Taylor. And it was such a like jolt at the power of nature, of the power of reality. It just shocked me out of my mind for a moment. And I was just in awe. And to this day, how many years later, like 20 something years later, I'm like, I still remember that little moment of transcendence. And that sense of like the boundless power of the experience that we're having when we're not binding it by our own preconceived conditions, biases, and otherwise, by our own self-interest. You follow? So those moments are a little bit like, well, another one, being in a flow state. Being in a flow state, or just feeling like your full personality is pouring out in certain social circumstances, feeling like your bindings have eased and you're just being who you are. Even something small like that. These experiences of like wonder and flow and awe are sort of like beginning to dip the tip of your finger or toe in the ocean that is spirit. It's just a little taste. It's like, oh, fuck. Right? And the enlightened state, awakened state is like swimming. And it's continuous and unbroken. But again, I'm just saying that shit. Direct experience is another thing, and it's one thing to take it on belief, but my only instruction is don't take anything on belief. Go see it for yourself if you want it. Hey, it's Taylor. I hope you enjoyed today's clip, and if you did, here's where you can go deeper right now. So my favorite part of the work that I do here is a daily email newsletter that I write every morning on the topics of human development and human potential, life strategy, training the mind, productivity and life optimization, and generally speaking, the path to self-mastery. And so if you enjoy these talks, I know you're going to love the newsletter. And if you'd like to check it out, hit the link in the description or head over to taylorallen.me and you can sign up free of charge. I hope we see you there.